Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here. So today we're going to talk about low stress, high strategy, designing games that challenge without overwhelming. I think here we're all game designers that actually focuses on this in our day-to-day jobs. So I'm going to start introducing myself. So I'm Jean-Francois Mitchell, the founder of DryGin Studio. We've been making strategy simulation game for the past almost 15 to 13 years actually right now. So we've had games on mobile and on PC, Steams, and console. Always focus on strategy simulation. All of our game titles are real time. So the panel today really fits with this topic of always trying to find the right balance between challenging without stressing the player or giving overwhelming situations. So I'll let you guys introduce yourself. Maybe we can start with Sebastien.
Yes, hello, I'm Sébastien Dassault. I'm working with a French studio, Regular Shapes, a brand new studio, on the upcoming title City Tales, which is a city building game. And I'm a lead game designer. I've been working at Ubisoft before that for 8 years as user researcher and UX designer. And the challenge of making cool, challenging games without overwhelming the players is always at the core of what we are trying to do with City Tales mainly.
I'll go next.
Great. Yep. Go ahead, Zach.
I'm Zach Barth from Coincidence, previously Zachtronics. We make, I guess, not strategy games, but puzzle games, but maybe they're strategy games. Um, yeah. Also, they are overwhelming, so I don't know why I'm here, but we'll get into that.
All right, James.
Yeah, I'm James from Spring Loaded. Before I started making video games, I used to play a game called Cannon Fodder on the Amiga 1200, and that was the game that inspired me to want to make games. I think that's a super hardcore strategy game, even though it's a bit action-based. Yeah, I worked in corporate hell for many, many, many years, and then we made a game. Well, then I left and I started Spring Loaded, and I think our most popular game is Let's Build a Zoo. And now we're moving on to make Let's Build a Dungeon that is my entire life, and everything about video games collapsed into one thing that will never sell.
Hopefully not. All right, so I think we're gonna get started with one of the first main question before we get into the nitty gritty details of the overwhelming experience. But before that, let's take a step back and let's try to find out as game developers and strategy management game and puzzle games, what is the concept of a challenge for a player? What compels the player to want to overcome that challenge, and how do we make sure that challenge is compelling and worth taking for the player perspective?
I keep going in the
Uh,
same order.
I, I think that what applies here is the same for the strategy game that for all the game. I think that we need a level of challenge that is corresponding to the skills of the players, but just um, for them to
Implement.
be able to grow playing the game, to learn, to master. So it's the flow theory of the guy who can pronounce the name Miha, this one. And so the thing that we have to provide challenges that correspond to the level of the players for them to be able to master one skill. It could be reflex or logic, or depending on the game, obviously. And I think that for strategy game, it's the same. It's more like maybe thinking skills, intellectual skills, maybe. I don't know if it's right, but
I think,
yeah.
yeah, I think there's something to it. I think that you know the player needs to first understand the problem and have just enough hints to go about the solution and feeling smart across that process, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, you give too much int, then it's easy. They don't feel empowered. But you give just enough that they feel smart that they found out the key and the solution. I think, and then it's as you mentioned is making sure that this always increments, right?
Yeah.
From
But it's
I
the
mean, I
flow
think.
theory. If sorry, go.
Go.
No, I just wanted to say if it's too easy, it's not interesting for the player, and if it's too hard, it's too frustrating, and so it's the theory. And so you have to to give the challenge and to keep it up because the player will learn, the player will progress and will master your game, and so you have to give a challenge that is each time a bit higher and let them like you said, they say, oh yeah, okay, I understand this, okay, oh I did this, so maybe now I can do something a little harder, and that's what keeps the game interesting, I think.
I mean, I think we've made a lot of games, and I made one that was like a tower defense, and I was very proud of it. Like the strategy to beat each level was perfect, like inch perfect, incredibly difficult. I can't even beat the game anymore, so that's how awesome it is. Um, so I learned a lot through that game. Like I did think that I designed something spectacular, and then I really quickly learned that actually giving transparency to the player as to the things that their actions do. Even at the beginning of Let's Build a Zoo, we hid away a lot of the mechanics. Like, oh, it's going to be super cool if like animals that are hidden behind structures are like sad or they feel more like free, and then they'll have more babies, and you know, too many people looking at them will ruin their lives. So building really complex structures that the player doesn't understand is something that I think was an immature version of me, and I did that a lot. And once I simplified those things down to basically bricks and pieces that players can use and understand the choices they're making and why they're meaningful, I think things became a lot better, and the games we made became an awful lot better. As long as the player feels some agency and some ability to choose, and they understand the impact of their choices, I think that's one of the core things of a strategy game. To make a strategy game, you have to be able to develop a strategy. And without understanding the pieces in play, you can't really do that. So that's something I learned and became a better designer from seeing through, I think. And I also thought that initially when I started designing games, I approached it more like I'm challenging. It's like a me versus the player thing. You know, if I make something so crazy, the player can't beat it. I'm super cool. And I very quickly learned, well, not quickly enough, unfortunately, but I did learn that my goal is not that. My goal is to make the player feel really, really clever, make them feel like they figured things out. And that's the biggest mindset change that I think going from a player to a designer really is, you know, for me anyway.
no, I agreed
Yeah.
that you know, yeah.
Sorry.
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 No, I agree that making sure that the player feels good about themselves, and I think that if the design is well done, um, players will eventually find their own hidden strategy or hidden mechanics. And we have this versus multiplayer mode in Bioink where one plays the villain and one plays the doctor. And over the years, I found out playing. I would just like drop in matches online and I would get my butt kicked by people. And I designed the game. I should know all the little tricks and whatnot, right? And people would actually beat me, and that's how I find out that's like that they found out their own combos and ways of doing things and timings, right?
Yeah, it's
One
very
of the things
standard
that
in the
you
kind of games
oh,
that I
sorry.
make. Yeah, well, just that like the people who play the R games, and because our games have a large optimization component. You were talking, James, about hiding things, right? And learning to not hide things. And the reason I make puzzle games and not strategy games, but maybe they're kind of strategy games, is because in a puzzle you have to put everything forward. You have to make sure that your players know all the mechanics, and like it's very much about like, here are all the tools, understand the tools, now solve the problems. Even if they're open ended, it's still like that. And so you know, that's always part of what we do. And so we have this huge optimization component with our puzzles, and the players who are very good at our games are very good at them. And they're really on like a just like truly, and because they're so optimizable, like it's not like you're thrown into a multiplayer match where there's like chaos. It's like, no, you can like run the same solution over and over again and tweak it and run it again and tweak it and run it again and tweak it and run it again. And you get this very strong optimization feedback loop, and people just come up with the most insane techniques and like just stuff I wouldn't even I honestly have no idea what they're doing. Man, it's crazy.
That's nice. Like you know, this always amazes me, and you know, it's a good thing. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's true of
Yeah.
all games though, right? Anybody who gets really into a game is gonna just start carving out huge
Well,
swaths of
yes,
technique.
but then again, the design has to allow that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
I guess
So,
people will find that design space even if you didn't put it there, right? Like in how to exploit a game or,
Yeah.
you know.
But I love it. Like now I think about how we can expose things to the players so they can actually sort of change their experience and all that kind of stuff. Like because I think we can only balance a game so much when we build a game, and so exposing like balancing components to the player where they can influence the way the game goes, and you get these really surprising stuff. So for me now, I just dream of opening everything up, so there's sort of a little barrier between us as designers and players. I know that sounds a bit abstract, probably, but um, I think systems that are very linear lead to very boring results. So the less I can make those systems linear, and the more they interact with each other, and more emerging gameplay you can make, the more interesting it becomes. The more broken stuff becomes. But I don't really care if it breaks. I think broken stuff is actually what makes things fun when things break and collapse.
mm,
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, you have to trust your players. You have to be like less rigid sometimes, like, as a designer. Just say, okay, oh, I want them to play that way, and but if they play that way, it's cool because if they have fun, it's the main thing, you know. But one of the things that you said before, James, that is really important, I think, is that yeah, for the choices about the challenge, the question, the choices we have to make sure that the players understand the consequences, the impact of their choices. If we put choices for them to make and they don't know what it will do, for example, there are some games that ask you to put skill points, you know, in trees. At the beginning of the game, you've played like 5 minutes, and you're supposed to understand all the systems of the game and to pull skill points in trees and to make choices, and you're like, okay, maybe this looks cool, maybe I don't know, and it's not good because you are making choices, but you don't know why you make them, so it doesn't work, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
I agree. Another topic we're gonna cover, and I just want to do a quick roundtable of is your game you're working on, most of the game you're working on right now are turn-based or real time? Because I think it's a big component of puzzle and strategy games, right? It's a massive design choice. Imagine if Civilization was real time, it wouldn't be a very fun game. So maybe to just like do like we do, everything that we do is real time. So you know, it's basically just like a clock always moving forward, which creates and puts a lot of stress on the design, making sure that what we do is comprehensive for the player. And if there is one thing that I found out is, you know, once you the number of variable that the player can play with in a real time versus a turn-based game is huge. Like in the sense of, you know, when you're turn-based, you can think about so many, you know, so many factors before hitting that next turn, right? As when you're real time, it just changed the entire tempo of the game. So I want to know you guys, you know, what type of game are you currently making or have made in the past? Are they more turn-based or yeah?
I think that to make something that is still considered as a chill game, or you know, not too stressful at least, I think that you have to have a way to slow things down, maybe, or to pause, even if it's real time. Um, uh, uh, right now in the city builder, into details. It's real time. Obviously, the time is flowing, but you can pause whenever you want if you have to make choices, decisions that and so I think, like you said perfectly, when you are able to stop the game from advancing, then you can just sit back and analyze everything. You can take that time. If there is not this option, if it doesn't exist, then you have to react. I think you're less thinking and analyzing, and you're more reacting to what the game is doing. And so it's not the same level of stress. It's not the same level of. It's not the same feeling, obviously. And I think that to be able to make chill games, you have to have this time to sit back and think a bit, I think.
No, I agreed. And I guess from a builder perspective is one thing. Zach, from a puzzle perspective, I guess your game is more like on
Yeah.
the turn-based, or
Our games don't even have a concept of entropy. I mean, our current game, you can just scrub time forwards or backwards equally.
okay,
So there's truly no stress there, other than
yeah.
that it's a difficult puzzle, I suppose.
I think the way we approach it. Did any of you play the game Humanity? It's one of the greatest games ever made, I think. But it's a game in which characters just walk around the map, and if they fall off and die, it doesn't matter. There's some loss, but to me, it's not about pausing time necessarily. It's about balancing the feeling of loss. So our game is there's an infinite flow of people coming into your game, and you've just got to try to refine the game as they exist in your game. So the puzzle is a flow. It's not a pause time, look at it all. It's a do something, see the reaction of the world, keep on changing the world. But I realized that approach is very stressful to people. When I first played Humanity, and I was like, oh God, people are dying. What's going on? It kind of stressed me out a bit. And so I see that pausing and scrubbing time and all those things are really, really valuable to players. But to me, it's just about a simulation game is about a giant machine. Well, a city builder specifically is a giant machine, and every time you tune something, you want the feedback of the impact of the thing you just changed. And I think that's really valuable. So we try to approach it a little bit like that. Like you're constantly refining an engine, making it perfect.
Do you track anything that accumulates? Like the idea that you could like steadily run out of money and go out of business, or
So there are things, but we don't really have a game over. I mean, this is horrible, and I think we'll probably get into this later. Risk in a game, how valuable is that, and perceived risk versus actual risk, right? And I think whilst you can run out of money, you just get another loan, and that just means worse things happen to you further down the line. But we try to build in a sense of slight loss, but not a meaningful loss. So you can always feel progress, and I could have done that better. I think Pikmin was a great game. When you had the time limit, Pikmin 1, perfect. I could have done better in that day. I could have. And then you restart the day. But actually, you can finish the game easily without restarting the day obsessively like I did 1,000 times. And I think one of the things designers try to remove those loops. Those things where, oh God, I could have done one more thing in that day. So you pause the game and you restart the whole day. And that's really frustrating. I don't really want that as a mechanic in my game. I want a sense of flow and progression. I feel like restarting things sucks. And that feeling that you made a mistake and it's permanent is really depressing. So how do we remove those things? And that's part of chill, I guess. How do you take those things away from an experience and always feel positive momentum?
But that's why I make puzzle games, right? Is because every time you start a new puzzle, you get a reset from the previous ones, and you don't have all the baggage of the past. I think a lot of the stuff that I want to get at in my games would be impossible if it was one. And this is the thing people constantly ask for. They're like, "Oh, Factorio is a very popular game. You also make games that have conveyor belts in them. Why don't you make a game like Factorio?" And it's like, well, and I guess Factorio actually you can kind of tear up anything and put down whatever you want, which removes that stress. But the idea of having like all your baggage from the past impact where you're at now, it's like you don't want that. You want a clean start every time because the game is pushing your limits. So the things you do in the past are going to be horrible hacks. You don't have to live with them forever. You want like a clean reset.
But on the flip side of that, you want to feel growth, right? And so I think when we were
Oh,
making
there's
Let's Build a
growth.
Zoo,
They get harder. The puzzles get bigger. You get better as you play, right? You're taking on these bigger and bigger challenges. It's just that they're
Personal
firewalled from
growth.
each other.
Personal
Yeah.
growth versus like the world you're building growth, right?
I've never
So,
made a game with
I know
that, so I don't
that.
know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I think
So-
it also depends on who you're making the games for. I think it's one of the first questions that you have to ask yourself as a designer.
Ourselves.
Yeah, definitely
Uh,
myself.
oh,
Yeah.
oh my
Yeah. I would work at a company somewhere and get paid way more if I wanted to make a game for other people.
What I mean is that you always will have these players that want a hardcore challenge and will like when the character dies forever in a game, or when there are very impactful things because it's more there is a kind of stress that they like, and they play for this kind of feeling. But I think that a huge part of the players don't want this feeling at all, and that's what we're trying to do, is to make games for people who want to be challenged but don't want this feeling of loss that you were talking about, or this high level of stress of losing something that they did, or something important, and I have high stakes for their choices. So what we're doing, for example, in City Tales, is that you can't really lose. You can always progress in the game. You don't have huge things like, we have some players that during the playtest said, oh, it's cool because it's not. I played Manor Lords a few weeks back, and I was playing and I was doing things in my city, and then an army came and destroyed my entire city, and I was like, okay, I will stop playing then. And so we wanted to prevent that. So I think, and so we didn't do a very difficult level of economical challenge like it can be in a city builder. But what we did is make maybe more of a spatial challenge, because you have to place your buildings on different places to address the needs of the people well. So just want to say is that you have to have a challenge, because it's not a game if there's no challenge. But you have to be careful of what level of challenge you give to your players, depending on what they are looking for when they play a game. Just as simple as that.
And also, I think there's, as you mentioned, who are you making the game for? It's very important. And also, the new player versus the player has spent 15 hours in the game. Also,
Yeah.
there's a curve there, right? And what we find out, one of the game we're currently working on right now, what we find out is people, there's a demographic that want to take it a bit more chill and take some more time, and some people, are a bit more proactive. And we've unlocked more than we usually do of time control. So there's like, one similar to Frostpunk, where you'll have like 1, 2, 3x speed, right? We've kind of opened up the speed system for people to be able to change that as they wish. And we also have the ability to pause at every time. So even if you're playing at 3x speed because you want to speed run the thing, which is a big thing apparently, speed running for our games. If you want to speed run the thing, you still have the ability to hit space at any moment. Everything pause. You take a step back. You think about your next move, and then you take it. So um, if there's one thing that we've learned also in the past is that when you have real-time constraint in games, and our games are just always moving forward, and there's an end to a match in our games, is that you have to have enough predictability for player to know what's going to happen and to choose at what rate they want to play with, right? So we've been having these times control since a long time now, similar to Frostpunk. And that's been one of the way that we've kind of mitigate the difference in curve, right? Of new players and players that want to 3x, 5x the game, or players that just want to take a chill and analyze every single bit that they see on screen and whatnot, right?
the approach in City Tales also is to make different game modes that are designed for different kind of players. We have a very chill mode where you can just it's nearly just you build things and there is nearly no challenge. And we have game modes where the economical challenge and we just play with levers in the game just to be able to to be able to give, like I was saying before, it's depending on the skills of the players. So we are trying to give challenges that correspond to the skill of our players. And when you have several, when you have a lot of players, they have different skills. Like you said, the new player, the advanced player, but also someone who is used for, in our case, to city builders, or someone who is not used to city builder, and being able to cater to their specific profile, I think is is a way to attract a lot of different players and to please them or to make them have fun depending on their skill and the profile.
Yep. And I'm gonna segue to a different question, but in the same realm. So, and basically the question is time constraint the actual enemy of deep thinking and analytical reasoning? In a sense that, yeah.
I think
Well,
that's known like scientifically, right? That if you rush people, they are unable to make good decisions. They're not able to think things through. Like that applies to all aspects of life, not just games.
It's true.
and I think it is too.
I think
Yeah. Go ahead.
I was going to say, sorry, that I think that giving people the exposure to the things that would happen if they made the wrong choices, and like trying to make the game feel like open so you understand everything, that sort of takes away a little bit of that. But yeah, sorry, I'm just agreeing. But time pressure is very bad.
Yeah. Well, but then it goes with the sometimes you don't have the choice, or maybe you don't want to make a turn-based game, or maybe, right? So
I didn't say it was bad. I just said that it makes people stupid, right? But yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you want to simulate something and like that makes people stupid, then yeah. I think that's one of the difficult things actually about so the games I make, it's very difficult to imagine them having a difficulty setting. But like you guys alluded to, when you make a real-time game, there's kind of like an affordance aspect where you have to offer people a difficulty slider because not everybody reacts the same way. But if you want to create something that's like genuinely difficult, it's hard to do that when people can just say, oh, this thing that's supposed to be difficult, I'm just going to dial that down so it's not difficult. And it's like, does it even work then? Like this is a big discussion that people have about like kind of like the Dark Souls like difficulty debate, Dark Souls has just like one difficulty setting or whatever. And it's like, is that actually like really player hostile, or is that actually like a like a real earnest challenge? And I mean, none of that applies to the games I make because they don't have an aspect of time. They're just hard, but like in a way that's unavoidable. But as people who make real-time games, I mean, yeah, this is a thing you have to worry about.
I mean, in our case, we allow people to make mistakes, or we highlight the things that they can do that are wrong, and we allow them to explore those mistakes, and then sort of undo them and roll back, just like you're saying with your time slider thing. Like, oh, yeah, nothing's permanent. You made this choice, and you can sort of undo it. And I think that gives people less anxiety and stress about making those choices. Like, I always think about like the games you talked about earlier, Sebastian, like when you kind of have to pick your stats at the beginning of the game. Like, why is there no like test, or see what this will be like for you as you experience the game further? And I hate that. Like, I always want to give people this is what would have happened. And Let's Build a Zoo was a very simple version of that. Maybe we didn't go far enough, but you made these choices, and we'd show you the terrible choice. Like, you can kill your animals and turn them into burgers, and you can take this gang mafia corpse and you can feed it to your pigs and see what your customers think, But you didn't have to click it; you just see the bad thing, and that was a sort of way of exposing people to there's a bad thing here, you can do it, But I hate the idea that games lock you into a certain. Once you've made a choice, you're locked in. I think we should always give people places to maneuver out of that.
And that's probably how, the Respecialized buttons has appeared in every RPG in the past few years, right?
Sometimes they're free, sometimes they're free, and sometimes they're not. And when they're not free, you're like, why do you make me pay something to just respect, to just change my way of playing? If I want to change my way of playing, it's a good thing. I'm engaging with the game, So why do you prevent me from doing that?
Because they're Dungeons and Dragons clones. And so people just copied it without thinking until many years later, somebody realized, like, oh, this is actually terrible game design. We should do something about this.
And just
I think
on the
also, I think also usually the games make you pay to respec because otherwise it creates balancing holes for very
yeah,
specific
true.
parts of the game where you can, you have your build and then you go, you respec for just this tiny section and then, you beat the boss and then you come back, you respec.
But
Oh no.
it's like James was saying earlier. It's like, okay, maybe it will break the game, but
Yeah.
if for the player it makes it more
Yeah.
engaging, it's a good thing. So
I think I've learned playing Inscription. I've learned that Inscription is all about breaking the game, right? All about like creating these crazy, undefeatable cards. And the feeling that I have when I do it is so good that I think this is like, poor, like I'll say it like poor balancing can actually be a feature.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, true. Yeah, because when the players, well, it's what we were saying. We want the player to feel smart,
Yeah.
and so if they are feeling smart by breaking the game, well, cool. It's
This is a huge trend in games. If you look on Steam right now, you'll find a million games that brag about how you'll get to break the game. Like this
Mm.
is it's almost like a joke at this point, I think.
yeah.
Every game just wants you to break it now. Like they're as obsequious as possible. Break
And
me.
just to come back on the real time thing, the question, and to go on what Zach said about making players stupid. Well, if we push the lever a little more, for racing games, it's so fast racing games that the players that have been studies on this, they can't see the UI around the screen because they're so focused on the car and on the road and so on that you have like tunnel vision, and so you can't even see the UI around it. So in a strategy game, or in a thing or in a city builder where UI is everywhere and it's very important. Of course, it's not a racing game. You don't have this tunnel vision, but if you are in real time, it's not as bad as in a racing game. And what I mean is that it's very difficult for players in a real time game to be able to see. It's not even understand or analyze, but even sometimes see the UI or the graphic elements around the screen. So yeah, it's not as easy for the players to, of course, to understand all this.
I mean, I think racing games is a great example. As they become more and more mainstream, there's now a rewind button to reduce the stress, right?
I was
And
thinking
so,
about that. Yeah.
yeah. So I think in a strategy game, I think back to playing Command and Conquer and XCOM. I mean, when I played XCOM on my Amiga 1200, which I put up twice since we started talking earlier, when the base attack would happen, I would just eject the disc, and then I'd have to wait 5 minutes for it to load again. And I don't think we want that anymore, right? Like we want
Those
to,
days are
show you
over.
yeah. So it's just too gone. And I think about like Command and Conquer, and I would, sink an hour into a mission, and then it would fail, and I'd be like, okay, I'll play again for another hour, and when I get to minute 60, I'll make a slightly different choice. Like we can't do that anymore. No one has time. No one wants that, right? No,
Yeah, it's a time
it's
issue.
boring.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah. So we have to give people the opportunity to go back a couple of turns and make a different decision. I think that's really important because that's what strategy is. That's the point, right? It's not grinding. We're not trying to make games that make people grind. We're trying to make games that give people the feeling of power, choice, intellect, interesting decisions that impact the experience around them, right?
Agreed. And I think we all agree that, real time is definitely, a killer of deep thinking. But once again, sometimes you may or not want to make a real time game. It's a design choice. But yes, it does. It does. Yeah.
All the popular games are real time. I like if you look at real
No,
games that real people play. Fortnite is not a turn-based game.
No,
No one
no.
wants turn-based gameplay, like in the scheme of things, right?
Once
I
again,
go back to what I was trying to say. Sorry. Earlier, I was saying that our game is real time, but as long as when you do things, you feel the impact of your change instantaneously, it feels fantastic, and you're not succumbing to it being a real time game. Because when we think of why real time kills, like choice and why all that stuff, it's because the impact of your choice is overreaching. If you try to reduce the impact of your choice in real time, you can make things really interesting and feel really responsive, and that's why real time games are great, because they're responsive. So trying to think like that is how I approach it.
yeah, and
Sorry, Sebastian.
no. It's, on the other hand, everyone is saying like, a turn-based combat is dead, and then you have Clair Obscur, Expedition 33, and of course there are real-time elements in the combat, but at the core it's a turn-based combat like in the old days. And the huge success of this game, so it's also the narration, the music, the everything, okay, we know, but it shows that when you do things right, it's not, you don't have to have real-time action. You can make great games with turn-based or like a slower pace of things without real-time action. So uh, I'm not sure that every player just wants real time right now, or every game that is really popular is just real time action. I think that there is a space for slower games that can give very interesting feelings to the players too, and with more thinking and more analysis, like we said, and so on. But yeah, but the success, it's interesting because the success of Expedition 33 is this mix between turn-based and reaction, real time, QTE and something like that. So it's interesting, I think.
Yeah, I think real time turn-based also might have gotten like a bad rep over the past years also, and felt like this turn-based is always this this subgenre super geeky Steam game, right? Where some yeah, I think as you mentioned, Sebastian, I think there's ways to make it interesting.
Yeah, another example would be Baldur's Gate 3. Okay, it's a bit older, but not that older, and it was a huge success. And at core, once again, you could do battles in real time, but I think that most of the player were doing like, okay, I will send him here, and then okay, maybe here, okay, and I unpause and I do all my actions, and then I pause again, and I think and I do things, and so it's, and yeah, there are games that works very well with this
Yeah.
kind of system.
Yeah. I have a bunch of questions for everybody in the room. So I think we can get them started. The first question, Sebastien, they actually segue pretty well on what you were talking a few minutes ago. So, as a design and UX specialist, what research are you making and testing to guide your choice and to tone down the stress of the game without losing depth? Because often that's a trade-off.
Well, on City Tales, we did a lot of play tests with actual players that we made. They come over to the studio and we made them play the game and watch them play, and we would take notes and see how they interacted with the game. So I won't launch now in how to do user research because it would be an entirely another topic. But yeah, we knew what kind of interaction we wanted to create between the player and the game, and we just tested that with real players, and we saw that there were a lot of problems because when you do playtest, you always see a lot of problems. And we fixed this problem, and so we tested again, and we fixed the other problems, and so on and so on. And I think that's the way it should be for all the game. But it's not, I think it's not just for the kind of game we're doing, like city builders or chill games or strategy games or puzzle games. I think that it works for every game. So.
And would you say that most of the fix were mechanic fix, or there were actually UI and UX fix, or there?
It was both. There was a lot of UI because we have a lot of quite original mechanics, and we didn't want to, introduce everything via onboarding on tutorial, and we wanted to make the game as clear as possible just with the UI and the UX. So there was a huge focus on this, on how, the small, just okay, you hover over an icon, you have a tooltip that says just a few words and that explains things to you, or even the UI. I won't enter into details, but we have quite a complex system of influence areas around buildings, and with different types, with different levels, and to be able for the players to understand really quickly and really clearly what type of influence touched which building, sorry, and which zone and so on. It was a work of several months and a lot of iterations. But yeah, playlisting.
Yeah, yeah. Mm. And how do you, especially like in CityTale, how do you compare to both city builder audience and also the more like cozy players that want to just, a more cozy experience? Because usually your city builder type is going to be a bit more hardcore. They've played it before, they know where they're going, and but the cozy player just want to take a step back. So how do you make sure you attract both?
It usually it's a bad idea to aim for two different profiles of player. Like we said before, you have to like choose, okay, who you're doing the game for. So yeah, it is still, because the game is still in the development. It's a real challenge to be able to talk to touch the two profiles. What we try to do, like I was saying, is that you can't really lose in the game, so you always have ways to progress. And so we wanted that for more casual players, even if casual is not a good word, but and at the same time we created the spatial challenge that could be optimized, and in fact, for all the systems, we try to make them not compelling. Like, you can engage with the systems if you want to optimize everything. You can really, you can put people with perks and make them level up in buildings, and you have all these systems that are quite complex, but you can play the game and progress without them completely. So for some players, you can just, okay, you build things and you progress and it's really beautiful and it's calm and it's chill, and for some players you can really optimize a lot of things, a lot of levers, a lot of options, but it's, you can if you want. And so that was our way to address both profiles.
Great, good. No, that makes sense. I think also there's a common theme that we see in general in games and like today is like the you cannot lose also mentality. Whereas even if you do lose, because sometimes you're gonna have missions. Well, even if you do lose, you're still bringing back something. So maybe you've gotten XPs or skill points or whatnot or whatever that you're still always incrementing.
Yeah,
And I
because
think that
like James said, we don't have time anymore for,
yeah,
losing big chunk of time for nothing, so yeah.
Everything has to be productive one way or another now. Yeah.
Yeah, in a way.
Maybe that's just like it's a more of a reflex on
And
the
the
society,
society.
but yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Um Also now we're gonna as I mentioned, there's a question like for everybody. So we're gonna go in James. So in Let's Build a Zoo, there's a morality system where the player could have built a chicken wing or bacon factory in the middle of a cute rainbow, benches, and a bottom shop. How did you embed ethical depth without turning it into a core?
Um, sure. So, like, I think the important thing in Let's Build a Zoo is to think, and all games that we, and I'm sure this is the same for all of us, is to think about player intent. When I first started making strategy games, or like we had a few turn-based games on mobile a long time ago, which is a question I'm going to ask you about in a second. We we would make everything really like numerically based and all that kind of stuff. And then I realized that that's just really boring. Like, how do you swing something from evil to good? So a player can pick to be evil, or they can pick to be good. And if we go back to like something like KOTOR, Knights of the Old Republic, you had to play good all the way to get the good ending, and you play bad all the way to get the bad ending. And there was never a sense of flexibility. So what I decided to do was look at the sort of vector of the player, like what they're trying to achieve. And then make the game sort of steer itself in that direction, right? So if they're clearly doing good and they have a lot of good morality, and then they do something bad, we're like, oh, let's give them more bad points than we'd normally give them for that because they're clearly trying to be good, right? And so we kind of weighted massively to flip it around really quickly. So if they do 3 or 4 bad things in a row, we let them become evil. Most people don't want to become evil, right? But it's that sort of, but I think most people don't realize that because we've been conditioned in so many games to think that we can't do a bad thing because it's going to ruin the game. It's like I really wanted people to be able to swing it back and forth and feel that freedom. I don't think we fully achieved it. I think Let's Build a Zoo, the morality system is really interesting, and I think it's a selling point of the game, and it's really cool. But I think we could have done a far better job, and I hope in the future, in other games, that we have opportunity to achieve that. I mean, that's the dream. So yeah, so Jean-Francois. I can't pronounce French names. I'm terrible at it.
You're getting great.
So your yeah, so your games is on mobile and PC and all kinds of things, right?
Yeah.
And
So
so,
yep.
what kind of things did you have to do to sort of make that work for different markets? And did you change the game at all? Like, we used to make mobile games and we just stuck to one thing, right? But like, did you have to make different allowances for different platforms and change the game in any way? What did you have to do?
Yeah, we did. So, maybe just a bit of backstory. Bioink started on mobile back in, the golden age of mobile where apps were 99 cents, right? Free to play wasn't a thing. Basically, Bioink, the first iteration of Bioink was was a PC game, but built for mobile, right? So it already had this like more hardcore type-ish of player in mind. And then as we published the first version, which was paid 99 cents on the App Store, it went pretty good. And then eventually we segued to Google Play, which on Google Play everything was free. There wasn't, people were not paying 99 cents, right? So it was the first instance where we had to put like, pay to remove ads or pay for this and that, right? So we kind of started to go into the realms of free to play and microtransaction and whatnot. But at its art and at its core, the game was still pretty much like a hardcore premium type of game. But then it exploded on Google. It went crazy, banana, 5 million downloads a month type of thing, right? For a few months. Crazy, crazy, crazy. And then we, as the game started to make a name for itself, we wanted to, move platform and go to consoles and go to Steam and whatnot. And then we had to rebuild the entire thing. Like we couldn't, take what we had. So it was more of a sequel that we adapted, right? But with Steam in mind and consoles in mind. So it was a very, very, very different game. And then that was a fairly good success as well. So people now wanted it back on mobile. So we kind of switch it platform like this. And then what we find out is, because we're not your typical mobile free to play type games, right? We don't have like a huge, spend dip. We're not after whales and whatnot. We're probably not the the advice to follow in terms of how you launch a mobile app, right, or a mobile game. But what we found out is that the major difference in between mobile players and PC players for the same game is the early onset of the game has to be adapted for mobile. Things has to be quicker. The tutorial has to be faster. The mission length has to be smaller. Like everything has to be snap, snap, snap. After a certain amount of hours playing into the game, then they eventually the curve they match, and then it's pretty much more the same game. But at the beginning on mobile, everything is adapted. It's not a route we're gonna go. So we're working on a new game, Extinction Day, which is very different, like a doomsday disaster type of game. And we're not gonna go this route. We're gonna stick to PC premium consoles. It was too much of a pain to bring to mobile without the huge depth in spending that you can have into the game to make it commercially viable, if that makes sense. So basically, the thing is, we did not adapt the game a lot because that was not what we wanted to build. If you want to build a truly free to play game with a PC franchise, it just doesn't. There isn't much example on the market that use truly premium game and port it to mobile. They're just so vastly different in mechanics. And microtransactions and whatnot. But yeah, so if you're bringing your PC premium game to mobile, which is still being done right now, then I'd say the onboarding is what you have to make sure is more on par with the the mobile player experience. But then after the curve eventually they round up to be pretty much the same.
Wow. Did you feel like a need to like monetize, like, because if the curve is the same and it's actually completable in mobile games, right? Doesn't that create a system where people don't want to spend money or what? Like,
But
because
so well, that's the thing. So once again, you do spend money to make things faster. We do have more upgradables and things that you can buy in the mobile because people don't want that anyway in a premium game. So you do have more things that you can buy. Honestly, it's much more of a grinding type game on mobile. It's the same. So the action phase is the same. Right? When you play the game, the part where you play the game is exactly the same. What changes is the entire meta. And on mobile, what we've done is, there's quirks mechanics like autoplay and fast forward a 5x. So you you basically you beef up your player, right? And then you go into the action phase, you autoplay your 5x. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I mean, in all transparency, we used to make mobile games as well, and it just feels like you're sort of ruining your game when you do that to it, right? So yeah, we're congratulations on leaving it behind. For us, it was legendary to step away for sure.
Yeah, so
Uh,
once again, as I mentioned, we're not gonna rebuild the same experience for the next game we're working on. We've decided to focus, and I think it's not necessarily our shift. It's just like the market shift in general, right? So people have stated they don't want to pay for premium on mobile, and then the way to compete on mobile is free to play with the huge spends and ads and in-app purchases, depth and whatnot. So it's just they're different games. They're different markets. Yeah.
cool. So I'm going to read out a question now. Ignore my like mechanical reading voice.
Make it as mechanical as possible. That would be better.
Compared to another game such as Plague Incorporated, um, where the player controls a human threat at a world scale. Bioink, which is your game,
Yep.
puts you at the scale of a human body. Despite this being micro, there is a lot of information and variables to deal with for the player. In addition to a sense of timing to deal with the medical emergency ahead, what are your gimmicks or design tricks that you've used to help the player learning from the game without being overwhelmed by the system itself?
So I don't think the scope of the game. So whether you're like in Plague, where you're looking at the world map, or in Bioink, you're like biology in the human body. I don't think the scope of the game really changes anything. I think that game design itself and the mechanics change everything. So you can make it as much as complex as you want or as depth as you want in both scope. Then the way we I think now we're getting good at making these type of games, because we've made there's several iterations on the market, and I think that what we found out, our game are always real time. You can lose a match, so we always have to deal with that, because like that's the premise, that's the fantasy, right? Is you come in, you have to either save or kill the patient, so that dude's gonna die or is gonna save, so there's a time limit, right? So for us, I think it's always finding the right rhythm to things, more just like a dance where everything has enough predictability that when is the right, and you learn that over the stages and whatnot, but there's always enough predictability into the next set of actions that are going against you, that what's going to happen. So you always use the example with the team of, like, in Diablo, when there's a boss that's about to stomp, right? He's always going to take a step back, right? And this step back is not there as an animation or whatnot. It's just there to to have predictability, so that you need to cast your ability now. It's not an aesthetic thing, right? So our game are very different, but we're trying to do the same thing, where if you're trying to infect your patient with a specific set of disease, then you're going to see the medical team are going to do like some very specific diagnosis. We're not going to tell you if they're going to be successful or not, but they're scanning the heart, right? And you're trying to inflict a heart attack, for example. So like, we're giving you hints that this is about to happen, right? Make a new set of decision, and that's how we've approached it. Always, like, give you a bit of hint. Same thing in the new game we're working right now. We're trying to always give you a hint of like what's going to be next, so that you can feel smart about it, right? As we mentioned at the beginning.
Feel smart about murdering people.
Yes.
You're getting very bright. So
Yeah,
jolly.
funny enough, like you mentioned that people don't want to play the villain, right? In our games, you always play the villain. So
Give them a choice, right?
yeah, exactly. And actually, I had a different another question also for you, James, which also I'm going to do a bit mechanically.
Yeah, good. Let's go.
Yeah. Just because I haven't at the time, and honestly, I think it's more of a sense of, I'm not sure I understand 100% of it, so I'll go a bit more mechanically so that the question is clear to everybody. Would you say that El Bazoo versus El Bide Dungeon, did I pronounce good?
Let's build a dungeon versus let's build a zoo.
There you
Okay.
go. Are different when it comes to challenging your players without overwhelming them. What are the key mechanics and systems that makes one more relaxing or cozy than the other?
Oh.
Let's build a zoo versus let's build a dungeon.
Let's build a zoo is, I mean, both of us come from a mobile history to some degree. I would say Let's Build a Zoo is a little bit built on the idle system. We give people a lot of choice, a lot of flexibility in the directions they can take, and we allow them to explore those things in whatever order they want to. So we take the pressure off. I think even, look at games like Grand Theft Auto, and I think they're actually quite similar. It's like, do you want to do the ambulance quest or the police quest or follow the main story? You can do it at your own will, or you can just run around and like shoot people if you want.
Mm.
And so I think, even though I'm saying it's a bit like an idle game, I think that freedom of choice without limitation is what makes something like Grand Theft Auto so popular. And that's never going to be called an idle game, right? So with Let's Build a Dungeon, I think we've like quadrupled down on that. It's, do you want to spend your time looking at the Steam store and optimizing like your we have like keywords, and you can like pick all the keywords that you want to put into your like store listing, and you can refine your screenshots. We like record the top left and bottom right of where you drag your the screenshot, and we figure out what's in it, and then we give it like points. So it's like super nerdy. You can do that if that's what you want to do, or you can then go and look at your quests, and you can like go to the world and you click on all the bushes that are being cut down. You're like, oh, this one's not being cut down as much as the other one. I could move it a bit. So it's a constant adventure of optimization. Or you can just go and play the game, or you can, go into the game you're building and just play it with your friends. I think for me, it's about agency and flexibility and infinite choice. Like you can do whatever you want, like literally. And we even have other games in our games. You can just stop playing our game and play something else entirely. Maybe we've gone too far. I think there's a chance we've overdone it. But yes, it comes down to choice and flexibility and depth. Like every time that we do something in the office, people are like, "You're really putting that in the game?" I'm like, "Yeah, we made enough money in Let's Build a Zoo that we can spend it all on Let's Build a Dungeon and never finish it. And we'll get out of business and the game will never get finished, but we'll have made the deepest, most ridiculous product ever not finished."
How long have you
And
been working on it?
3 years, and it was supposed to come out a year and a half ago.
Oh, you missed that one. When's it coming out? Is it almost
tell
done?
everyone we tell everyone 2025. No, it's not almost done at all. It's absolute chaos. It's amazing. I love it. Every day I go to work, I'm so happy because so many stupid things go into the game. There's so many ridiculous things.
Wow.
I think having too much money to spend on your game is the worst thing ever. And having, so we're working with Kowloon Knights, like they funded us, and their fund has run out. It doesn't even exist anymore. But they're doing a new version of it, right? But we're like the last game that hasn't shipped. And they said there were some other games, but they, like the people have just gone MIA. So we're the last game that hasn't shipped. Yeah, I think so.
Wow.
We're the last game that hasn't shipped, and they just leave us alone, and we just carry on making the game, and no one bothers us. And to be fair, the game is either going to be spectacular because we've got all this time and infinite like budget, or it'll never come out. But thankfully for them, it will be what it's going to be. And I think without a publisher or an investor like that, the game would never exist. It's really amazing to be given this freedom. And obviously, I'm sure at the end of it, I'll feel deep regret, or I'll be burnt to a crisp, or something terrible will happen. But at this moment in time, I feel this is the game of my life, and I get a chance to make this crazy thing. But yeah.
Following on that, I feel that when you have to release something in a specific amount of time, because money is time at the end of the day. You one thing that we usually do is we get the core of what we want to do much better, faster, and we test it faster, right? Then the moment that you have more time and more money, then as you mentioned, you start having all of these other ideas, but it creates new type of greatness, right? In terms of like you wouldn't have all of these mechanics and the game wouldn't be as great, but at the same time you didn't get to test your core idea faster, which is always, for me, it's always a conundrum, right? I'm always like, same thing for us. We've been working 3 years on our game. The demo is even out yet. We're launching the demo this summer, and I'm like 3 years and we still don't have validation. That drives me nuts. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like being lost in an ocean and believing, yeah, it's going to be great. It's going to be.
Yeah, exactly, right? Yeah.
It's a wild place to be.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. All right. Then Zach, I got a few questions for you.
Yeah.
So, what's your secret sauce to allow player to explore constant optimizations without the stress of failure metrics dominating the experience?
You can't fail. I mean, our game, you
So,
can't fail in one of our games, right? I mean, they're puzzle games. They're not performance based. It's not like, I think like in Portal, you have to like perform the solution. You don't even have to perform the solution in our games. You set up a bunch of stuff, you hit play, you find out if you solved it or not. If you didn't, you just go back to the beginning. In Kaizen, the game we're working on now, you can literally just like scrub back and forth. So you don't even have to like watch it run from the beginning every time. You just like edit it non-linearly and like add stuff. And if it doesn't work here, you just like scrub to there and fix it and see if it works. You know, like you can't fail.
so I guess it's the same. So the follow-up question was on Kaizen as well. You know, what are the lessons that you've had from the previous puzzle to not you know, have these pressure mechanics? Basically, it's going to be the same things from what I can understand in Kaizen as well, right?
Well, it depends on what you mean by pressure, right? I mean, our games are some of the hardest in the industry, right? I mean, like I think we make some of the hardest games out there, probably, right? In terms of like intellectual shit you have to do, but it's all in your head at your own speed because they're these sort of like, I don't know, like non-time based puzzles. Um, so is that a kind of pressure? I mean, we just keep talking about like real-time stuff. Like our games are actually like difficult for people to understand all the tools and sequence them all in time so that it does the correct thing, and like spatially, like, and some of them are more spatial than others, some of them are more like programming. You know, that's like extremely like difficult and off-putting for some people, right? But that's a different kind of pressure. Um, I think, yeah, the real-time stuff doesn't apply, the time pressure stuff doesn't apply, the failure doesn't apply, but it absolutely can just be this wall that like we just say solve this thing and people are like, well, I have no idea what you're even asking me to do. I don't know how to solve that. The in
I'm
Kaizen we solved that just by making it easier.
okay.
Um,
Okay.
they're just less hard than they would be maybe in a previous game. One of the things we've had as a theory for a while that we've noticed is that, like, what I guess it remains to be validated because the game doesn't come out till next month, but um the question of, could you make a game like ours where all the puzzles are easier and it's like it's just merely solving the puzzle is easier, and then you quickly get to the point where it's like, okay, yes, I can solve that puzzle, I can solve every puzzle in the game as a normal person, but like now that I can like optimize the puzzle, can I make my solutions better than other people I know, or other, you know, can I just make it better and focus on the optimization? One of our previous games, Opus Magnum, had that quality, that it was a lot simpler than some of our other games, and so more people got to the optimization point, and that seemed good. So this is sort of we kind of doubled down on that in this game, just saying like, can we make it even more accessible? Can we make these puzzles even more solvable initially, but then still have that optimization space?
And out of curiosity, do you have demographic data on your player? Like, I'm trying to understand who plays this stupidly hard, impossible to solve puzzle
Well,
game.
they're
Is
not
it?
impossible, right? And it's like I think that's one of the key things. Like they're not there's no trial and error. It's not like a very hard Sokoban game or something. It's just that the stuff they ask you to do is this kind of like open-ended problem solving. That's some of the games are literally about computer programming. Other ones are similar to it, and that it's about sequencing and sort of like, you know, you have resources that are being used at different times, and you have to figure out how to like sequence that. And I think that's just, it's like a genuine deep challenge, right? And
But
so
I
just
guess
not everybody's looking for that. I don't know.
so. My question is more like, I assume like male 17 years old is not your, yeah, right? Your
I don't
main. You don't
I don't
know?
know. I don't know. I mean, there's lots of
No?
bright young people who are going into like, you know, college and grad school and stuff. I feel like I feel like I run into a bunch of people who play our games that are in like grad school or going into grad school.
Yeah.
So the kind of people who would like homework in school and would stay in school for longer. Um, but it's pretty broad, right? We have lots of programmers who play our games, but like we have lots of people who, you know, could be programmers but aren't programmers by circumstance who play our games. Um, yeah, I don't know. It's it's not
Is it
just
like
like professional programmers.
so I'm guessing most of your challenge is like onboarding and like teaching people how to play the thing. I'm
Oh,
like,
absolutely. Yeah. I mean, and that's also part of why they're sequenced as puzzle games, is because there's like an obvious like scaffolding built into a puzzle game because you're sequencing a bunch of like isolated activities one after the other. I taught high school for a couple of years ago, and it's the same thing. Like you just have to like scaffold the experience. If anything, teaching was good because it showed me how bad I actually am at all of that stuff. And then I'm like, oh, we're doing a great job with our games. It's like, oh no, actually, like people, it is harder to teach people things than you even think. Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, it's all about scaffolding for sure. I mean, I think about that
yeah,
constantly
we
like,
have.
with our
Sorry.
games, is that like it's all people. We just released a demo for Kaizen, and people are like, "Oh, it's just the tutorial." It's like, no, our whole game is the tutorial for the game. Like, it's the whole thing is a progression that is designed to teach you the game over the course of the game. But if people are like, "Oh, tutorial versus not tutorial," it's maybe not as much of a distinction in our stuff.
It make me think about the Witness, that was a puzzle game a few years back, where there was no tutorial at all. You just went into the game and you tried things, and you had these little panels with the little puzzles.
Yeah.
And the first one was so easy that it was just okay. Oh, I have to move this here, and it's very easy, and I will go to the next. And okay, it's a bit harder. And I think the very interesting thing in this game was that sometimes I think it's the same for all the good puzzle games. We are like, okay, this one I can't see how it works. I can't see how to solve it. And then you would do just close the game, do something else, maybe sleep, go to sleep, and the next day you will be like, oh, okay, I think I've got an idea. It's so
Yeah.
you are playing in your own time, and so it's never overwhelming in the sense that you take the puzzle like you want. You solve it at your rhythm. So
Yeah.
it's
People
interesting.
famously self-report that for our games. Like they'll upload pictures of their notebooks and they're like, "Look, I was at work and I was doodling out solutions to
Yeah,
space game puzzles." And yeah, like people, yeah, exactly. Yeah, people, you can solve it on your own time, and that means whether you're in game or not, your brain is still thinking about what you were stuck on. Yeah, I mean that's why I love puzzle games, right? Is that it gets at that experience of solving problems earnestly.
I think strategy games in general are all puzzles, and I think the thing I said earlier about trying to make the pieces obvious to people, we have this problem in our game, in that people don't understand that there's puzzles in it. Like you build a quest, and it's like place some grass, it gets cut, and then you can find a thing in it, and there's like a quest giver. Obviously, in an MMORPG, if 1,000 players are there and they all get the same quest, and there's one piece of grass and it has a drop rate of 1%, they all get really pissed off and quit the game. And trying to like give players that impetus that there's an aha moment. Oh shit, I just need to place loads of grass, right? And it's amazing when you realize that, oh god, that's how games work, right? And if I change the damage of this weapon, it's going to obviously fuck the balance of the whole game. Like trying to teach people those things, it's like really exciting, but as soon as we reveal it, that's the puzzle, then the puzzle is broken and there's no fun anymore. And I don't know how you guys deal with that. Like when there's a little secret or a little tweak, and then you find people don't really get it, and then revealing it sort of takes away all the fun. I'd love to know
Yeah.
how any of
But
you overcome that.
this is kind of my beef with strategy games, is they're just like poorly telegraphed puzzle games or whatever. Like especially I've been noodling on an idea for a tycoon game, and it's like, oh, but I'd want to do everything different because tycoons are just like shittily designed, poorly telegraphed puzzle games, and trying
Cold
to figure out
man. I feel
everything. To me, everything is a puzzle though, so that's a me thing. But yeah, well, this comes up in puzzles for sure, right? Is that like you can design puzzles where people have to figure out a specific thing, and what do you do for the people who don't figure it out? Right? Our solution to that has been to make puzzles they don't have specific solutions, right? Like rarely do our puzzles require a specific thing. They're just like I design puzzles before they have solutions. I'm just like, this looks doable. And then like you kind of see like, is it doable? And because it was designed as a puzzle without a solution in mind, they can be solved any number of ways. They're more like tasks than puzzles. And this is why they're optimizable. This is why they're open-ended. This is the thing that makes like a Zachtronics style puzzle game what it is. It's that open-endedness. But yeah, sometimes you do require people to understand things and they get stuck. I mean, you can watch like I don't know what you guys do for collecting metrics on your games, but we have like a list of here's all the puzzles in order, and here's all the people who start it and like how many of them finish it. And you can watch as like 100 people fire up the first puzzle, and over the course of the game, it plummets to like 1% of people fired up the last puzzle, and half of them just quit before solving it or whatever. And that's how we get to our like 0.5% completion rate on some of our games. Right, but you can just watch it. Like those are people who either like didn't figure out the tricks or got bored or frustrated or whatever. So there's all number of reasons that people can like reject your game and stop playing it.
It makes me think about when I was designing escape games, physical escape games, and
Yeah.
that we never designed a puzzle or with general knowledge that
Oh yeah.
we didn't want players to be cut out of the puzzle and the progression because they didn't know of something, like a historical fact or a science fact or a thing like that, because we wanted them to be on the same level. And that, so I think it's a little bit of the same here. When to answer you, James, too, it's when you propose a puzzle, you have to make sure that the more obscure things maybe for the player are explained, and you have to make sure in a way that the huge majority of your player will understand what is asked of them, and what's the goal of it, how they can, I know, but it's like the hidden things that we were discussing earlier. If you hide things from the players willingly or not, sometimes it doesn't work.
I think the thing that you hide has to be, secondary in a sense, right? So there's, I think it's great to have these hidden eggs or gems, as you mentioned about the grass example, for example, James. But at the same time, it has to. I think you need to make sure that to complete the main objective or to get to the next main phase or whatnot, you don't have to discover this hidden thing on your own. There's nothing more that I love more than googling a specific game's hidden secret. I love that. There's nothing that I hate more than having to Google to finish a stage or an objective. It's like it doesn't make any sense. If I have to Google it and I have to go to the wiki page to find out that hidden thing, which was the key that, was, if because the moment that I Google, I spend 45 minutes looking and searching and busting my head in the thing, right? So I think that personally, I love these eggs. We always drop a few eggs in all of our games, but they're always secondary thing. They're always, yeah, they make you progress faster, but they don't they're not a requirement, right? So and then they get they're going to be all over the Steam discussion boards, and that's how people find out about them. And then once they know one that cutting the grass does something, right, then maybe they're going to try to cut something else. So they're going to think about it because now they know that it's a possibility, right?
Stuff like this is required in puzzle games, though, right? Like Portal. If Portal didn't have surprises, no one would like Portal. You know what the answer is? You know how they make sure that everybody can solve every puzzle in Portal? They play test it like 1,000 times, right?
Mm.
And anytime you have something that like a decent number of people don't get, like you take it out. Like honestly, like Valve has such high standards. It's probably if anybody didn't get it, you have to make it so that they get it, right? The Witness, like you think that game wasn't play tested like 1,000 times to make sure that everybody like that's like what people want in like an excellent puzzle game, which is not what I make because I don't like do that. But like for excellent puzzle games, they're play tested like 1,000 times so that everybody finds the cool, like figures out the gotcha and gets it. Right? Like that's how you do it. Like puzzle games are supposed to make people smart. They're not actually like a test of if you're smart. They're an illusion that you're smart.
Yeah, I think in Portal it was about removing the options, right? Like, and I think in strategy games you go back to Command and Conquer and like or any great RTS, and you don't have certain units, and that's because they want you to learn a simple strategy, and there's only 6 choices for you, or less even, and you're like you're going to figure it out because there's nothing else. And Portal is a fantastic example of that. You can't shoot every wall, and you can't do this, and you can't do that, and eventually, the 6 things you can do in that room, you figure it out, and you feel smart, And I think as we open our games up, and people expect more and more things from games, it's a lot harder to kind of steer someone towards a solution or a thing you want them to discover. And I find that really challenging because I want to make everything and give every option, but I want people to discover the thing I really want them to feel fantastic, right?
This is why strategy games are just shit puzzle games.
Damn.
That would be the conclusion of the
Yeah, exactly. That's
Are we
let's finish on that.
Yeah, are we out of time?
Yeah, I think it's pretty much the time to wrap it up. So
on that amazing statement, I love it. Yeah. That could be the heading on the kind of YouTube videos. Why strategy games are just shit puzzle games.
I'll take it. By Kaizen, as long as it mentions Kaizen a Factory Story on there. Yeah, that's not.
Let's have everybody, plug his game they're working on right now. So I think Zach, you just stated it.
Yeah, Kaizen a Factory Story. It's coming out in July 2025. We meant to do it in a year, and we slipped to a year and a half on the game, and I feel grossly negligent. So I can't imagine working on a game being 3.5 years in or whatever. But yeah, Kaizen a Factory Story.
How do you spell Kaizen? Is that a K?
Kaizen, Japanese word for continuous improvement. It's a game about manufacturing in Japan in the 1980s. It is a Zachtronics style puzzle game, but it's not made by Zachtronics because I do not work at Zachtronics anymore. I work at Coincidence, which is a legally distinct game studio. Yeah, it is very similar to a Zachtronics game. If you liked Opus Magnum by Zachtronics, you will probably like Kaizen a Factory Story because it is a sort of, like a refinement on like a lot of the design stuff that went into that, but with like really brightly colored, kind of like Japanese 80s products. It's coming soon.
Great, James.
Oh, I'm making well, not me, many people are making Let's Build a Dungeon, which is a simulation of the video game industry and what it's like to balance a video game. You get to build levels, you get to set up your Steam page, you get to negotiate with every single person in the industry. Literally everything I do every day goes into the game. If something in our industry is not in the game, I'm like, oh. So yeah, you can go in and it's we talk about breaking the game. The concept of the game is that you start off and you build your MMO, and then you balance the system so that players are getting the right amount of success rate on their quests, and it all feels really good. You make lots of money, you deal with everything, and then you can go in and play the game. And then you can pay your developers to build tools to make editing the game easier. And then eventually, whether or not it actually turns out this way, you can destroy the game entirely and make whatever you want. So creative mode is for that. And then we have a mode that turns off all the shit that we spent ages building and just makes it like a really simple simulation game. So all the stuff that I love, which is, building an entire inside a game, you can just turn it off and not play it. And I have this horrible feeling most people will do that.
So when you do launch your Steam page and your game, how does the game know? How does your game knows if the game is going to be successful?
Oh, you refine literally everything, and you go into events and you go to shows, and we simulate all the curves of like visibility. So we actually we do stuff like Game Discover Co, and we actually try to run numbers that are similar. Which
So
is just so
now you're an expert as on launching games algorithm.
Yeah.
You know that puts pressure on you.
If your game does poorly, it's entirely because you designed it badly, not because you marketed it badly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just a personal failing now.
Yeah, I mean, we'll always make sure that you can succeed somehow. It won't be as hard as real life, that's for sure.
Sebastien?
Yes, so City Tales, Medieval Era. It's been out in early access on Steam a month ago, and it's still under development for maybe 6 months. And it's an organic city builder. So instead of just placing buildings, you trace zones that fills themselves with buildings. And you have a companion system with a faithful companion that you can put in the buildings to make them more effective, and they gain levels, and they have a story, so there is also a narrative aspect in the game. And yeah, it's a mix of a really chill, very beautiful game, very organic, and more special puzzle optimization, a little bit of RPG, and yeah, so that's it.
Great. And I'm working on Extinction Day, which is a doomsday simulator where you get to place the disasters on the planet and see the world implode, from like storms to war to volcanoes to outbreaks to whatever. It's been inspired by real life. and we've been working on it for almost 3 years now. The demo is going to hit Steam next month in July. Well, yeah, about in a month, and we're set to launch most likely early 2026, or if a miracle happens, maybe a bit sooner than that.
Great.
All right.
But
So
I
the
forgot
objective
to
is to
say.
destroy the world or to.
Yeah, no, you do destroy the world. Yeah, you're the villain again.
Just this. I forgot for City Tales. Yeah, the one of the particularities of the game too, compared to other medieval city builder, that is that you can create huge cities, so really huge. So you have a huge map and you can fill it up entirely, and so yeah, that's one of the particularities of the game.
Great. All right. Well, everybody, thank you for your time. I had personally a great time doing this. It was pretty fun. Glad to meet everybody, and that's it. And we'll finish on Zach's Zach's.
Tagline.
Yeah,
The
exactly.
prophecy. Zach's prophecy.
All right.
All right.
See you guys.
All
Thank
right.
you.
See you guys.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Thanks.
Cool. Bye.
Ciao.